kind of bombastic and overdrawn. When I was told, Peter told me when I was speaking here that this was the last place, the last forum that Andrew Breitbart spoke in New England. And I was like, wow, those are some big shoes to fill. If any of you guys knew Andrew Breitbart, it was amazing how he would get up there and just start talking spontaneously. It just came out, and people responded because it was real. I'm here to tell you something that Andrew Breitbart always said, is that politics is downstream from culture. Feminism's influence in culture is what is producing so much of the craziness that we see on college campuses. Women are afraid to speak out against this extremist ideology, because if you begin to question feminism, why, that's hate. Disagreement is defined as hate, and you will be silenced. You will be banned from Facebook. You will lose your account on YouTube. I was banned from Twitter. I had been on Twitter since 2009, had tens of thousands of followers, and yet they complained that I was somehow participating in targeted abuse, even though no one ever said who I targeted, how they were abused, or how I was supposed to have participated. They are trying to suppress dissent because they cannot win the argument. Feminism is always a lecture and never a debate. There's only one side to the story, and it's their side. Because they claim to speak on behalf of all women, if you disagree with a feminist, therefore you hate women. And so by defining dissent as hate, they have been successful, especially on university campuses, in silencing dissent. When Christina Hoff Sommers of the American Enterprise Institute tries to speak on college campuses, they go wild. They begin shouting, holding up signs, accusing her of being a rape apologist. Christina Hoff Sommers. And it is this intimidation factor, this terrorism to intimidate people who would speak out against them, that is a major part of why I say, and write this down, feminism is a totalitarian movement to destroy civilization as we know it. Now, in my book, Sex Trouble, Radical Feminism and the War Against Human Nature, I do something that feminists hate. I quote them. All that is necessary to defeat the feminist movement is to quote what feminists say. Now, I'm going to, here on my smartphone, my wife finally talked me into getting one of this thing. My phone is smarter than I am. And so I had resisted this because it makes me feel inferior. Let me quote this to you. Women are an oppressed class. Our oppression is total, affecting every facet of our lives. We identify the agents of our oppression as men. Male supremacy is the oldest, most basic form of domination. All men receive economic, sexual, and psychological benefits from male supremacy. All men have oppressed women, end quote. That is from the Red Stockings Manifesto of 1969. It was more or less the charter of the modern feminist movement, the radical feminist movement. And this is included and taught as part of classes in women's studies programs. It's mandatory reading. And including at the University of Massachusetts. This is what is taught. This idea of what I call the patriarchal thesis of feminism. Okay, you know, all women are victims of oppression, all men are oppressors, and therefore whatever. Anything a feminist says or does is justified in this war against this total oppression that feminists claim to be fighting. And what I find most interesting about this is that it is the most privileged women in America, university students, who claim that they're victims of oppression. You're attending Harvard University. $65,000 a year your parents are paying to send you to Harvard, and you're a victim of oppression. Meanwhile, my son, working 60 and 70 hours a week, doing drywall, doing carpentry, doing roofing and home construction and home remodeling, my son is somehow an oppressor because he's working to support his wife and 2 children. How does this oppression work? And yet you find that this is used to justify all sorts of things. Just yesterday, the Secretary of Education, Betsy DeVos, talked about the Title IX and how Title IX has been used to deprive students of due process rights, where in the 2011 Dear Colleague letter that the Obama administration sent to university administrators threatening to withdraw their funds if they did not change their policies dealing with sexual assault. Well, as we have seen, more than 100 lawsuits have been filed by students who claim that they were deprived of their due process rights in these campus kangaroo courts where claims of rape and sexual assault are adjudicated. I have talked to some of the students and their parents who have been victims of this denial of due process, and they are psychologically shattered. The mere accusation of rape is used as proof of rape. Well, she accused you, you must be guilty. And the guys tell the stories of what actually happened. And you're like, holy cow, is anyone safe from this? It is totalitarian. The depriving people of their constitutional rights. The right to free speech is at stake.
Robert, 2 minutes.
2 minutes, thank you. But our right to free speech and the right to freedom of religion. I read a story. It's the Southern Poverty Law Center classified a woman as a hate group. Okay, she has this little nonprofit. Her name is Jennifer Rohrbach Morse, and I've read many of her articles, because she quoted the Vatican's position on homosexuality. She is a hate group. Religious freedom, freedom of speech, due process rights. We are under assault in America. And I just want you to remember that sentence. Feminism is a totalitarian movement to destroy civilization as we know it. My book, Sex Trouble, Radical Feminism and the War Against Human Nature. My blog is theothermccain.com. I write for the American Spectator, and you can find me also on medium.com as The Patriarch Tree. Thank you.
Got that question?